Director Nick Kozakis brings us GODLESS, the Eastfield Exorcism, and this is an Australian movie actually based on a true story. It's a little different from a lot of exorcism movies that you may have seen, and if you're a fan of this channel, I'm assuming you've seen at least a few. So, like I said, it's based on a true story, and without kind of really going into too many kind of like plot developments here, and keeping this somewhat spoiler free in case you're unfamiliar with the reported case, it primarily focuses on this kind of couple where the wife seems to be having some type of episodes, let's call it. Now, she is seeking medical help from a professional, and this kind of doctor thinks she might have schizophrenia. But the husband is from well, they both are from a kind of religious community, and they think that that she's possessed. And there is, you know, there is kind of, if you've seen plenty of exorcism movies, you know, she seems to be sort of speaking in tongues and things like this, and kind of having strange voices and wandering around dancing and, you know, things like this. So there's kind of like, there's some, if you are a believer of that sort of thing, you know, you can kind of maybe kind of you'd be forgiven for thinking that. But obviously this kind of doctor thinks it's just a kind of a case of she's having this kind of like mental episode ultimately. So they're at kind of odds about what to do. And the husband, being a very religious man, essentially seeks the help from the kind of the local religious community, who get in contact with this kind of unsanctioned exorcist, who's this guy who, just some guy that this woman knows, who apparently does exorcisms, and you know, ultimately that's the kind of the plan going forward. Now, what will happen after that, you have to watch the movie and find out, because I'm not going to spoil it for you. So let's discuss what works. So this isn't your traditional exorcism movie. It doesn't really follow that. Well, it does follow the same kind of path. You know, we're introduced to this couple. You know, we see that they, you know, she may or may not be possessed. It's one of these films where it's kind of like, if you didn't know the kind of obviously what happens in the real case, it's presenting you with the two potentials, you know. And so far, like a lot of other exorcism films, the difference I think with this one, and what makes this have a little bit of a unique flavour, I think when you watch a movie that is concerning possession or exorcism, things like that, you kind of are thinking, okay, you know, I'm watching this film and it's presenting this, oh, she could be kind of like having some kind of mental issues, or she could be kind of, you know, actually possessed. But if you're watching a movie, you're thinking, okay, we kind of think it's, you know, it's clearly leaning to the fact that she's actually possessed. But this one, it actually leans the other way. It's actually presenting you more evidence that she's actually just suffering from some type of mental breakdown, because she's kind of has this tragedy in her life where she lost a child and things like that. And we only get the kind of like a few sequences that kind of make you think, oh, maybe she is possessed. It much more favours and you know, basically the audience, you're thinking, well, I don't think she really is possessed. So it kind of, it's a very different kind of feeling to a lot of exorcisms, because, you know, in most exorcism films, you kind of know that, oh, she really is going to be possessed, but here it's presenting like, we don't think she actually is, but she's just kind of getting swept away in this kind of like religious fever, and this kind of like these very kind of like, let's say, enthusiastic kind of congregation want to go through and go do this exorcism, which is quite brutal. And it actually shows you the kind of like, what the film is more about is the kind of like the brutality that you can put people through, and ultimately, you know, the end results of it. So it's a different kind of movie in an exorcism. It's more about the actual brutality of the exorcism rather than anything else. So I found it an interesting kind of watch in regards to that, and you know, I think maybe depending if you're religious or not, then you may think, you know, you may have different opinions about this sort of film. So it certainly doesn't paint people who are fervently religious in a particularly kind of good light. It makes them seem like shut off, not willing to kind of like look at outside options and own our kind of like, you know, want to kind of, it's their way and that's it. Not willing to kind of like look at other options. So certainly, you know, it's, for certain people, it won't play particularly well. But I found obviously, again, based on it being a true story, it's a fascinating kind of concept. And I thought I like this kind of, this slightly different slant on a tried and tested, you know, genre of movie. And there are, you know, we do see some kind of like things on screen, some more overt kind of symbolism, and we do see some kind of like demonic imagery on screen. So this isn't, although it plays more like a crime drama than a horror film, I would say, there is still there is still elements there that I feel would you know, resonate with a horror fan. But the real horror here is more of the psychological side, and it's really more about the kind of the what people will do under the kind of the guise of religion, and kind of what people just go on, you know, blindly kind of like follow and do these things without really kind of questioning it. So I found the very moral complexity of it interesting. I think the performances are quite good. I think that some of the characters are a little frustrating, but I think it's the design of them. But I think the performances were pretty strong. So yeah, generally speaking, although it's relatively kind of like, as I say, you know, it's not particularly outrageous movie in regards to VFX and kind of spectacle. It's a solid kind of drama, crime horror to a certain degree. What doesn't work, I don't think the, I feel that the ending, that's maybe the third act, wasn't as strong as the other two. We also get a strange kind of flashback where there seems to be, I didn't really understand why what this deal was, but there seems to be a different partner compared to the one we have now. It's like a different guy, but it's like not addressed. So I didn't really get that, if I'm honest. Maybe I've missed something in watching this film, but the husband that we see in the kind of the most of the film is the different person that we see in the flashbacks. And I didn't really understand why that was the case. But who knows? Maybe I missed that bit. But I would have liked to have had a little bit more kind of like context on the aftermath of what actually kind of happens. You do get some, but I felt that, you know, that for a pacing wise, that was the, you know, there was some interesting stuff here that I felt kind of got skipped over quite a lot, and you know, you felt like you got a little bit shortchanged towards the end, I will say. Like I said, there are some frustrating characters in this, but obviously, again, it's based on true events, but I think some things have been tweaked, and certainly the names have been changed. You know, but, you know, so I don't know how much it actually kind of follows on from the real case, but from what I have read, it relatively kind of faithfully, although I'm reading it, the true case, you know, in a way, was a little bit more horrific in some ways, I would say, than what we have on there. So you kind of feel like if you were to watch this and think, okay, this is what happened, fair enough, you kind of can't really critique, you know, characters, what they shouldn't have done, because this is a true case. But there's a little bit of frustration maybe that you'll get from some of the characters. But I have to say, you know, it was a pretty good movie in, you know, obviously a low budget exorcism film. And there's so many out there, it's refreshing to see one which actually does bring something new to the genre. It's not a flashy film in regards to VFX and pea soup and all that kind of stuff. But there's a little bit there, and I think if you want more of a drama, crime-based exorcism movie, but still hits those familiar beats, I would certainly check it out. I'll actually give it a 7 out of 10. It's a fairly solid movie. Have you seen it? What did you think of it? Leave me a comment, and I shall look forward to seeing you next time. Bye for now.